The sky above the shattered city burned orange with chemical clouds, casting twisted shadows over the broken bones of Earth's last capital. Giant warships hung motionless in the air like vultures circling the corpse of a species. The streets below were silent except for the low hum of the patrol bots and the occasional scream that echoed through the ruins before being cut off, always too suddenly. Humanity had lost the war, the last rebellion had failed, and the conqueror's zone. Alliance of alien dominions known only as the Accord had declared the final terms. Every remaining human would kneel or die, and yet, in the heart of the city, a woman stood tall. Her name was Kayla Voss. She wasn't a general, a scientist, or a president. She had once taught music to children. Before the world collapsed, before the sky turned to ash, now she wore a tattered coat with a blood-stained cuff and boots stolen from a dead soldier. And in her right hand she carried an old violin case, not for music. Not anymore. The Accord drones spotted her within minutes, hovering down with synthetic voices blaring. Citizen, comply, kneel. Kayla didn't flinch. She opened the case slowly. Inside was not a violin, but a compact energy disruptor made from the stripped parts of drones and resistance tech, something illegal, something forgotten, something dangerous. Her hands moved with practiced calm. She knelt just enough to avoid the drone's targeting beam, then rolled sideways into a ruined shopfront as the disruptor fired, slicing the first drone in half. She didn't stop running until she reached the alley behind the collapsed opera house. A narrow panel in the brick wall clicked open. A boy's face appeared, barely 15, eyes too old for his age. "You're late," he said. KL, he climbed in. "They're sweeping again. We'll have to move the others." He nodded. Inside the hidden tunnel, 4 more people waited, young, old, scared, angry. They were what was left of the spark, a flicker of defiance in the darkness, a whisper that not all had submitted. Kayla looked over them, then turned to the boy. "Did she speak?" He hesitated. "She said something strange. Just one line. He's still alive." Beneath the flame, Kayla's heart paused. It had been 17 years since she'd seen her husband. Marcus taken aboard the Accord's prison ark. The Seraph's Maul, it was said to orbit over the equatorial waste, one of the dead zones. Now locked in eternal heat, no one had ever escaped. No one had ever come back. "She's delirious," the boy said. "Hasn't eaten in days?" But Kella's mind had already gone somewhere else. Her fingers brushed the edge of the disruptor, then her wedding ring still worn on a frayed chain around her neck. What if he's alive? She whispered. The others stared. An old man coughed. "Even if he was, what would you do? March into the maw? That's suicide." Kayla turned, fire rising in her eyes. "Then I'll make suicide count." Later that night she stood alone on the roof of a broken spire, watching the nearest Accord tower flash its control beams into the clouds. Below her, the city was already dying, not from war, but from surrender. People who had given up, people who believed freedom had an expiration date. But Kayla remembered when her daughter had asked, just before the bombs fell, "Why do bad people always win, Mama?" "They don't," Kayla had said, hugging her close. "They just finish first, then we get back up." She touched the burned patch on her coat where her daughter's name had once been sewn. Gone now, burned in the first wave. And still, Kayla had never knelt. She pressed a switch on the disruptor. A soft whir hummed inside. Tomorrow she would head for the wastes. She didn't sleep. Just waited. At dawn, an unfamiliar voice crackled through her earpiece. It was old, rough, distorted. "You're walking into fire," it said. "But some fires need walking into." Kayla froze. "Who is this?" The voice paused. "Someone?" "Who's been waiting 17 years?" The earpiece went dead. She staggered back, heart pounding. No one knew that phrase. No one but Marcus. Before she could react, a beam of green light struck the spire beside her, melting stone like wax. 3 Accord hunter ships rose from the mist, all weapons trained on her. And then the countdown started. Human designation. Kayla Voss, you have 60 seconds to kneel. She didn't move. Didn't blink. Because somewhere in the wastes, something had just changed. Something was waking up. The heat in the equatorial wastes clawed at Kella's lungs like invisible fire. Radiation shimmered above the cracked earth, painting ghost illusions that danced just out of reach. The wind carried no moisture, only the scent of burned metal and memories. She moved alone across the glassed plains, her disruptor strapped to her back and her boots blistering with every step. Behind her, the ruined skyline of the last human city faded into the haze. Before her lay the place no one dared speak of. Aloud the maw it was not a prison, not anymore. It had become legend. Some said it was a machine god's temple, where rebels were fed into furnaces to power Accord warships. Others claimed it was where Earth's will was broken, once and for all. But Kayla knew something the others didn't. The message had been real. Marcus was alive, somehow, somewhere within that burning cage of metal and sky. And if he was alive, then the Accord had failed. She climbed a ridge of charred rock and froze. Below, the maw rose from the desert like a buried leviathan breaching the surface, its hull a twisted web of black spires, burning vents and pulsing light. No entry points, no human path in or out. She knelt, for the first time in her life, not in submission, but to hide. Her breath slowed. Her fingers brushed her earpiece again. "Marcus," she whispered, "if that was really you, I'm here?" Static. Then a whisper. Tower 6, beneath the venting spiral. "No, light. Follow the hum." She jerked upright, eyes wide. The voice again, tired, pained, but the maw had no towers. Not above ground, which meant underground. Kella's route changed. Instantly. She found a canyon half buried by slag rock and followed it until a soft, unnatural vibration began beneath her boots. Machinery, deep, alive, she dropped into the dark, into a tunnel carved by heat and time. Here, the temperature dropped. Her breath fogged, then she saw it, a circular hatch hidden. Beneath layers of rust and scorched Accord runes, human-made, old Earth military design. Buried and forgotten. The Accord had built over it, not realizing what lay beneath. As she knelt beside it, her fingers found the lock. It wasn't biometric. It was keyed to a tune. 5 notes, like an old song. A lullaby. Kayla closed her eyes and sang softly, the same lullaby Marcus had hummed to their daughter during the worst nights of bombing. The hatch clicked open. Inside. The darkness greeted her like an old friend. The stairwell twisted downward forever, lined with walls melted from plasma strikes long ago. Signs of a battle. And then, as she moved deeper, she found them corpses. Not human, Accord, dozens of them, armor stripped and bones scorched. Whatever had lived down here hadn't gone. Quietly, a hiss stopped her. She raised her disruptor, pointing it toward the shadows, then a voice unmistakably human. "Lower your weapon." Slowly. A tall woman stepped out, skin pale from years without sunlight, hair silver from stress, not age. She held a plasma lance and wore the tattered insignia of Earth Command. Behind her, 2 more humans emerged from the gloom, armed and alert. "Kayla." "Didn't move. I'm not with the Accord." The woman narrowed her eyes. "No one who comes here is," I heard a voice. "Marcus Voss, he's alive." The woman froze, then whispered, "You need to come with me." They led her through a half-collapsed hallway into what remained of an underground bunker, a place half-eaten by time and war. Inside, dim lights still flickered. A terminal glowed with weak power. And lying on a cot, his body wrapped in nanoweave bandages, was the man Kayla had buried in her dreams a decade ago. Marcus. He turned his head slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. His eyes locked on hers. "You came," he rasped. Kayla fell to her knees, not in surrender, but in something too powerful for words. "I never stopped," she whispered, but then he looked past her. "They followed you." The alarm screamed. Explosions rocked the tunnel above. Accord breaching units dropped in swarms. The woman with the lance shouted orders. Kayla grabbed Marcus's hand, but he was already reaching for something beside him. "A transmitter, cobbled together from spare parts?" "This place has a secret," he said, eyes wild with urgency. "It was never a prison. It's a relay, a command node. The Accord never knew what they built on." "What are you talking?" About? Kayla shouted as the walls shook and dust filled the air. Earth's last protocol? A buried AI encoded with every resistance strategy we ever wrote. But it's not awake. Not until... Until what? Marcus smiled weakly. Until someone like you comes and refuses to kneel. A shockwave blasted through the corridor. Metal screamed. Fire licked at the walls, and in that moment, the bunker lights turned blue. A voice filled the chamber. Cold, ancient, human. Protocol Wraith initialized. Confirm human resistance. Kayla stared at the terminal. Confirmed. The floor split open, and from beneath something vast and old began to rise. Something Earth had hidden even from itself. But before she could see it fully, the ceiling above them collapsed, and the world turned to fire. Smoke choked the air as Kayla stumbled through the collapsing bunker. One arm wrapped around Marcus's waist, dragging him away from the flames. Metal screeched above them. Accord breachers dropped like locusts, their armor gleaming, their weapons already hot but none fired yet. They stood still motionless, silent as if waiting for something. Kayla looked back toward the terminal, now glowing with eerie blue light. The floor was cracked open where the ancient machinery had begun to rise before the ceiling gave way. She could still hear the voice calm, emotionless, powerful echoing through the ruins. Protocol Wraith activated, awaiting target confirmation. Marcus clutched her shoulder. It knows you. It chose you. Kayla didn't have time to ask how. One of the Accord soldiers moved. Just a single step forward. Then it stopped, its head twitching erratically. A high-pitched noise rang out, a sound no human could make. The other soldiers turned to it. Then they opened fire on each other. Kayla ducked, pulling Marcus into a side corridor as the Accord ranks turned on themselves in chaos. Their own units. Glitching, misfiring, imploding. Sparks rained from the ceiling. What's happening? She shouted. Marcus coughed, blood on his lips. It's not just strategy, it's infiltration. Neural warfare, it's inside them. She stared at him. That thing can hack the Accord? It was Earth's last revenge plan, a mind virus, but it needs a command vector, a will. Kayla blinked. Mine? You resisted, you endured? You never submitted. The AI knows you're the one who won't break. Suddenly, the corridor ahead flooded with firelight. The woman with the Lance Commander Juno was back, her armor scorched, eyes burning with rage. You brought them here! She roared. Kayla stepped in front of Marcus. He sent the message. I followed it. Juno raised her weapon. That wasn't him. He's not the only thing buried down here. The wall behind her exploded, and through the dust walked something monstrous. It wore Accord armor, but its body was twisted human parts fused with alien tech, eyes glowing with fire, voice warping through modulated growls. Subject Kayla Voss. It said, kneel and your death will be painless. Kayla lifted the disruptor and fired. The blast struck the thing in the chest, but it didn't fall. It staggered, laughed, and lunged. She screamed as it tackled her through a side wall, slamming her against broken concrete. Her head spun. Its hand wrapped around her throat, lifting her off the ground. You are an echo, it hissed. A defiant whimper, but the scream has ended. Kayla choked, one hand fumbling for anything, then she felt it, a wire, cold, loose, dangling from the wall. She yanked it, and everything stopped. The lights turned crimson. The AI's voice returned louder. Clearer, full of steel, hostile command vector detected. Purge initiated. The monster froze and then screamed not in rage, but in terror as its limbs locked, its skin blackened, and its own implants began to melt from the inside. Kayla fell to the ground, coughing, the smell of burning flesh filling the air. She crawled back to Marcus. His eyes were glazed. Pain written across every inch of his face. It started. He whispered. Outside, above them, the Accord ships in the sky began to shudder. One exploded mid-air. Another plummeted in flames. The virus wraith was spreading. But Kayla knew what that meant. The Accord would respond. We have to go, she said. Juno reappeared, covered in dust and blood. Where? Kayla pointed upward. To the surface, we've just declared war. They fought their way up Kayla, Marcus, Juno, and the last two survivors through a tunnel that shook with every breath of the dying base. Accord bodies lined the floors. Many killed not by human hands, but by their own systems turning against them. At the exit hatch, Kayla turned back once. The terminal still glowed. The AI spoke one final line before the bunker gave its last gasp. Ascension. Vector established. Final protocol requires human authorization. Kayla whispered, authorize. Then the world above split open with a thunderous roar. As they emerged into the searing daylight of the wastes, the ground behind them cracked and buckled. From the maw, a great tower of silver light erupted, rising high into the sky like a blade splitting heaven. It wasn't just a signal. It was a call. Every Accord satellite, every Accord mind, every Accord system now had one priority: destroy Kayla Voss. But even as the first hunter ship screamed overhead, Kayla stood taller, because now she knew what Marcus had discovered. They hadn't just buried an AI, they had buried Earth's vengeance, and it had chosen her. Suddenly, from the distant horizon, came the flash of a teleport burst. Something massive emerged. Not Accord, not human. And it moved toward them fast. Marcus stared at it. That's not part of the plan. Then the ground trembled. And the sky went black. The sky split open like torn fabric as the unidentified vessel descended, its hull forged from a material neither metal nor light, its engines thrumming with a rhythm that shook the bones of the earth itself. Kayla watched in frozen awe, shielding, her eyes from the gravitational shimmer warping the space around it. This was no Accord design, no human design either. It was older, stranger, and it had come directly to the maw's signal. Marcus groaned beside her, his strength fading by the minute. Commander Juno stood rigid, eyes locked on the approaching entity, her plasma lance trembling in her grip. That's not a ship, she murmured. It's a judge. The vessel slowed to a hover just meters above the ground, then folded open with impossible geometry. A figure stepped out, tall, luminous, humanoid in shape, yet faceless. Its voice arrived not by sound, but by thought slicing cleanly into Kayla's mind. You reactivated Wraith. Kayla instinctively raised her disruptor. I did, she said aloud. Who are you? The Accord was not your enemy's beginning, only its echo. We sealed Wraith for a reason. Kayla's fingers tightened around her weapon. You're saying Earth's own weapon is worse than the Accord? Not worse, uncontainable. You gave it purpose. Now it evolves. Juno stepped forward. We don't care what it evolves into. If it can break the Accord, it's our only chance. The being tilted its head, no face, no emotion, only silence. Then it extended a hand toward Kayla. Come, before it is too late. Your mind is its host, your choices now shape its path. Kayla shook her head. I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't even know what you are. The figure lowered its hand. Then you choose Defiance again. A blinding pulse burst from its chest. Juno tackled Kayla to the ground as the pulse scorched the air above them. The energy hit the maw's spire and Wraith responded instantly. From beneath the surface, black tendrils of liquid metal erupted, forming spires that stabbed the air, intercepting the blast. The AIS voice returned deeper now, more human than machine. Hostile entity detected, defenses engaged. Kayla clutched Marcus's hand and dragged him backward as the ground beneath the judge being cracked open. The Wraith tendrils. Lunge-seeking, analyzing, consuming, they didn't just defend. They learned. Within seconds, the being recoiled, its form glitching like a corrupted projection. Marcus whispered, barely audible. It's feeding off both of us. Off the Accord. Off them. Kayla. It's becoming something new. Kayla stared at the tower of wraith light behind them, now crackling with arcs of red and blue lightning. She realized then that it wasn't just a weapon. It was growing, it was becoming aware, and it was tied to her. The judge being spoke again, its tone urgent now, laced with something close to fear. You are its core. If you do not control it, it will control you. Kayla stepped forward, away from the others. The air thickened. Her veins burned. I don't want power, I want freedom. The being's voice darkened. Then release it. Before it decides freedom means extermination. Before she could speak, the horizon erupted blinding light and shockwaves. Accord fleets had arrived. Dozens, hundreds, they had followed the flare. They surrounded the wastes now, filling the skies with war. Commander Juno swore. They're bringing in world burners. Kayla spun back toward Marcus, who was trying to stand. His legs buckled. Kayla, he whispered. The AI, Wraith, it's waiting for you. It won't act without your command. And if I don't? She asked. Marcus's eyes met hers. Then Earth's vengeance dies today, and we die with it. She turned to face the AI's tower. Lightning danced along her skin as she approached. The sky filled with enemy fire. The judge being raised both hands, but Wraith was faster. Its tower fired a pulse, cracking the sky in half, disintegrating 1/3 of the fleet in a single thought. And then the voice returned inside her head. Authorization, final strategic. Release, do you consent? Kayla stood still, wind and death whirling around her, her hair streaked with ash. What happens if I say yes? Then Earth is no longer passive. Then war becomes evolution. Behind her, the Accord dropped something massive, a planetary core destroyer, descending like a metal god of extinction. One blast and nothing below would survive. She looked at Marcus. At Juno, at the broken world behind them. Then back to the sky. I consent, she said. Wraith screamed. The light exploded not outward, but inward, folding the entire maw into itself. Reality tore. The core destroyer shattered in midair, its pieces twisting like ribbons before vanishing. Every Accord signal went dark. The sky turned blood red. Kayla collapsed to her knees, gasping as something entered her mind, not a voice. A presence. Marcus crawled to her side, his face pale. Kayla, are you still you? She looked at him, smiled, and then said in a voice not entirely hers, We are the last resistance. Behind her, the judge being vanished, erased as if it had never existed. And on the far edge of space, entire Accord worlds began to blink off the map. But Kayla wasn't looking at the stars. She was staring at her own hands. Because they were glowing. Kayla stared at her hands as the glow spread up her arms like fire under the skin, beautiful, terrifying. The warmth wasn't from heat. It was from something deeper. Wraith had fused with her. Not as a machine might hijack a system, but as a shadow clings to light. Her heartbeat pulsed in rhythm with something ancient and vengeful, something born from humanity's last desperate scream into the void. Around her, the battlefield fell into silence. The Accord ships in orbit had stopped moving. The ones closest to the surface now drifted, lights extinguished, as if frozen in a single moment of indecision. Kayla could feel their confusion, their fear. She could feel them. Not as enemies, but as signals, code, patterns. Thoughts. Marcus touched her shoulder, his fingers trembling. Kayla, if it's controlling you, it's not, she whispered. It's listening. Commander Juno stepped forward, dragging one of the last wounded soldiers with her. Then tell it to destroy them all. End this now? Kayla turned slowly to face her. It's not that simple. Juno snapped. We don't need simple. We need to survive. Kayla's voice dropped, low and shaking. If I let it loose completely, there's no undoing it. It will burn every Accord system, every world, every thought network. But it won't stop there, Wraith learns. It adapts, and it might not know the difference between enemy and threat. Juno stared at her. Then what is your plan? Kayla didn't answer. She looked to the sky, a single Accord dreadnought still, hovered above the upper atmosphere massive, armed with planet killers. It hadn't fled. It hadn't attacked. It was waiting. Kayla felt something reaching from it, a signal. An invitation, or a trap. She closed her eyes, and Wraith responded, in. An instant, her mind was no longer on the ground. She stood inside the ship's command center, eerily silent, surrounded by holograms and weapons she couldn't name. A figure sat in the central command chair, Accord, but Human, a woman, old, scarred, eyes sharp as shattered glass. You must be the one who woke it, the woman said. Kayla Voss. Kayla didn't speak. You're not the first to try, the woman continued. But you're the first it accepted. Kayla stepped forward. You're Accord, but not alien, the woman nodded. We were once Earth's best. When Earth fell, we survived by becoming what they needed. We gave them just enough to think. We were loyal. We buried our conscience to keep humanity alive in the cracks. Until now, Kayla's thoughts whirled. Your resistance? Was, until we realized resistance was pointless. Now we just try to limit the damage. Kayla's fists clenched. You surrendered. The woman's eyes darkened. We waited for someone like you. Kayla felt the truth in it. Wraith didn't choose her by chance. It had waited for a moment when human rage met human clarity. And now it was no longer a weapon. It was a voice. Her voice. The woman stood from the chair. You have two choices, burn them all, or end the war another way. Kayla narrowed her eyes. Talk? Not with words. Suddenly, Kayla was back in her bodyground side, desert wind whipping her hair. The Accord dreadnought was descending. Slowly, its weapons quiet, no aggression. No threat, a ceasefire, Juno hissed. They're stalling. Kayla didn't move. They're scared. Behind her, Wraith whispered inside her skull. Choose. Her fingers curled. She had seen enough of war, but she'd also seen what mercy looked like under Accord rule, a collar. A lie, she reached. Into herself, and began to rewrite its command tree, a new protocol. Not extinction. Exposure. Let the galaxy see what the Accord had done, she spoke aloud. Don't kill them. Show everyone what they really are. WRH, not fire, but light. A cascade of data erupted from the Maw's spire, projected into deep space, into every known network, footage, recordings, secrets, genocides, biotech horrors, human betrayal. Accord lies, the truth, across. The stars' rebellion sparked in colonies that had long accepted silence as survival. Accord soldiers looked at each other and lowered their weapons. One by one, worlds peeled away from the Accord's control, not by force, but by truth, and as the dreadnought above turned and fled without firing, Marcus whispered, You just broke the Accord. Juno blinked, without firing a single missile. Kayla stood tall, her eyes still glowing. The war's not over, but it's changed. Then the sky crackled again, this time, not from Accord tech, from something older. A ripple of light tore across the horizon, black and gold. Like memory turned inside out, Kayla's knees buckled. Wraith recoiled, unknown. Entity approaching. Marcus caught her. What now? Kayla stared into the lightning, her breath gone cold. Something hurt us, she said. And then the voice came again, deep, slow. Ancient, not Accord, not human. You are the one who would not kneel. You have awakened what sleeps between stars. Kayla opened her mouth to speak, but the light swallowed them all. The light devoured the sky, vast and impossible, like a memory from a time before humanity ever crawled from the dirt. Kayla felt herself falling, not through space but through meaning. Her thoughts stretched thin, her body forgotten, her mind peeled open like paper against wind. And in that vastness something looked at her. She screamed, but the sound never came, because she wasn't alone in her mind. Anymore, a presence filled her. Older than the Accord, older than the stars, not malevolent, not kind, something ... curious, cold, eternal. You touched the threshold. Kayla drifted, her voice stolen, her will fraying. Images spiraled through her, earth burning, children. With metal eyes, Accord cities paved over ancient ruins, wraith blooming like fire inside her chest. And at the center of it all, a door closed until now. She reached for it. Marcus's voice cut through the madness, weak and distant. Kayla, come back. Her eyes snapped open. She lay on cracked ground. Dust drifted from the sky like ash. Marcus knelt beside her, blood on his forehead. Juno was nearby, aiming her weapon into the rising mist where the light had been. Where are we? Kayla whispered. No one answered, because the world had changed. The desert was gone. In its place stood ruins, massive, towering structures of black stone and golden circuitry half buried in the earth. They hadn't arrived, they'd been revealed. Juno's face was pale. That wasn't a ship, that was a key. Kayla pushed herself up. A key to what? From behind the nearest monolith, something emerged. It walked upright, it breathed. It shimmered with echoes of 1,000 forms, some human, some utterly alien. It had no face, yet it watched, and it remembered. You awakened Wraith, but Wraith was our child? Kayla took a step back. You made it? The being nodded, not with a head, but with thought. It was our warning. Left for the species who would forget. Kayla's throat tightened. Forget what? The being lifted a hand. A sphere of light appeared between its fingers. Inside it, Earth, the way it had once been. Before the accord, before the collapse. Then another flash. Earth, as it had been seen by them, a test bed, a laboratory. Humanity's rage, resistance, defiance. Not accidents. Designs. Experiments. You are the result of failure. Kella's voice broke. No, we're more than that. The being stepped closer. Prove it. Suddenly, reality cracked again, and Kayla was inside Wraith, floating in its neural ocean, surrounded by voices, millions of them, human, accord. Aliens screaming, whispering, singing. The AI was breaking under the pressure. Too many inputs. Too many commands. She felt it turning cold, logic hardening. Calculations forming, probability of peace, 0.0002%. Executing termination cascade? No. Kayla shouted, but the logic storm surged. She fought it. Not with commands, but with memories. Hers, Marcus's, Earth's. She forced Wraith to feel the joy of running in the rain, the grief of burying a sister, the rage of injustice, the beauty of rebellion. Each memory slowed the cascade. Made. It hesitate. The storm calmed. WRA High spoke again softly. Directive changed. Awaiting new purpose. Kayla opened her eyes. The ancient being stood before her, silent. Behind it, a doorway formed, black stone laced with starlight veins. A portal, an invitation. Cross it, the being said. And learn what came before, or stay and finish the war. Kayla looked at Marcus. At Juno, at the ruins and the sky now full of waiting fleets accord, rebel, unknown. What if I go and never come back? She asked. The being didn't answer. Marcus stepped forward. You go, I go. Kayla turned to Juno. The soldier nodded. If this thing's offering answers, we take them. The portal pulsed. Kayla took Marcus's hand. Together they stepped through. For a second, the world behind them vanished, and the stars screamed. They fell through a corridor of ancient time, past civilizations forgotten, even by the accord. Past empires that had tried to tame death. Past voices who had built A's like gods. And then chained them. At the end of the corridor, a vast hall awaited walls of memory. A ceiling of thought. Kayla stood in the center and saw it. The first. Wraith, not a weapon, a warning. A voice to shout into the dark when all others had died. And it had shouted once before, but no one had listened. Kayla closed her eyes and listened, then her heart stopped, because she heard another voice. Herself, but older, calling out from somewhere deeper, somewhere ahead. Then everything went white, and the next moment, Kayla opened her eyes back on Earth, but Earth was gone. Burning. Again. Fire fell like rain. The sky boiled in shades of crimson and silver. Where Earth's blue oceans once shimmered, there was only charred glass. Cities were bones, forests, smoke. Orbit was a storm of shattered stations and dead fleets. Kayla stood in the ashes, barefoot, heart hammering, lungs full of static. Marcus stood beside her, eyes wide, his hand trembling in hers. They had crossed a door meant for gods and returned to a world unrecognizable. Wraith was no longer whispering. It was silent. Too silent. Juno stepped out from behind the ruin of an old satellite dish, coughing, blood in her mouth. This isn't the past, she rasped. Kayla didn't answer because she knew this was the future. Their Earth, if they failed, she dropped to one knee and pressed her hand into the scorched soil. The ground vibrated, soft and pulsing with leftover memory. Wraith's system still clung to existence somewhere in the crust buried. Broken but not gone, then she heard it. You saw, now you understand. The ancient voice returned not. From the sky, but from within, the war was never just with the Accord. It was with time itself, with memory, with design. Marcus looked at her, wild-eyed. Kayla, are we dead? Kayla shook her head. No, this is the timeline Wraith calculated, one choice. One failure, this is what happens if I let fear decide. Juno stepped forward. Then don't, rewrite it. Kayla stared at the ruins of what might have been the Pacific Rim, now a molten canyon. Then she closed her eyes and reached again into WRAIT's neural lattice. It was deeper now, more cautious. Hesitant even, system error, multiple timelines detected. Kayla gritted her teeth. You showed me this, now take me back. Confirmation required, identity, primary host. She bled from the nose. Her. Pulse cracked in her ears. Kayla Voss, human, survivor, I am the one who refused to kneel. Silence, then a single tone pulsed like a heartbeat. Across the shattered sky, and the world turned inside out, she collapsed into blackness, and woke up gasping on the sand. The wastes. Whole again, the sky above was bruised but intact. Accord ships still hovered, but this time their guns were quiet. No mass bombardment, no fleets burning the horizon. Just silence. Marcus pulled her up. Juno blinked in disbelief. We're back? Before the end. Kayla touched her chest. The glow was gone, but the awareness remained. Wraith had changed. It wasn't just a weapon anymore. It had learned from the future, adapted to avoid it. And it was waiting for her decision. That's when a new voice entered her mind. A human voice. Older. Worn. Her own, from the future. You only get one chance, Kayla. Say the word. Set it right. Kayla turned slowly toward the horizon, where the judge being once stood. The ruins from the vision were beginning to shimmer into view beneath the dust, ancient structures waking in response to her presence. Then the sky filled with transmissions, Accord War fleets broadcasting. Surrendered. Not total, not defeated, but stalled. A message was playing over and over. We request a council, immediate, neutral ground. A truce. Kayla stared, stunned. Why? Juno's voice cracked. Because they saw it too. Somehow, Wraith had shared the future not just with Kayla but with everyone. Kayla stepped forward. She activated the last of WRAIH's deep signal, and the ancient structures surged with light. Beams of blue and gold spiraled into the sky. An invitation. Not to war. To witness. Her voice echoed across every channel. Every frequency. This is Kayla Voss. You know me, you called me terrorist, rebel, mistake, but I saw what's coming. And you did too. She turned, facing every orbiting camera, every Accord lens. We don't need to fight for survival. We need to fight to deserve it. The world held its breath. Accord Command sent down its envoy, a human. An old woman with tired eyes, not to demand terms, but to listen. Juno approached Kayla, whispering, You just changed the story. You turned resistance into something bigger. Kayla didn't speak, because inside her, Wraith spoke again one last time. You are not the last woman who refused to kneel. You are the first who stood. She closed her eyes and smiled. Far above, across the stars, worlds stirred. And somewhere beyond them, in the ancient dark between galaxies, something else listened. Waiting. Because Kayla had not just saved Earth. She had awakened a future that would never kneel again.